Hi and welcome to the channel. I thought it was about time I did some more Arrow video recommendations. Hi, welcome to the channel. My name's Chris and it's middle of Arrow video season sale time. Camp Arrow Video, their summer sale. And a while ago in Mambi Films Discord that some people were actually using one of my old videos for recommendations, so I thought I would update it with some more current recommendations, just in case you're sitting there with money burning a hole in your pocket thinking, now's the time to buy these things. They're basically half price, and while they're a bit dearer than they used to be, now kind of £9 a title, still pretty good value for some incredible films. So where to start off with? Well, we have a mix of the old Arrow Video and old Arrow Academy style titles, so I'm kind of grouping them together, but I'm going to start with something that's actually one of my favourite films of all time. Something that when I first watched the disc, I thought, I don't even know if I'll like this, and then I watched it 3 times in a row, back to back to back. I ended up going to sleep at 5 that morning. The film that I'm talking about is Coffee by Stan Hill. And starring the inimitable, if that's even a word, Pam Grier. Coffee's a revenge tale of a woman that goes to fight back against the man. She's fed up of being pushed around, being on the low feeder of the world, and decides to exert herself in the world, using her sexuality, using her balls, using her strength. It's very much a showcase in that you don't have to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger to be an impactful action star. I think it's utterly brilliant. I think Pam Grier's utterly brilliant in it, and I think in general this is a film that everybody should watch, especially if you're new to the blaxploitation genre, so to speak. There's a couple of other great titles in the Arrow Video collection, like the Willie Dynamite, etc. But I think Coffee is the absolute top of the tree. It also has, like, Roy Ayers' incredible soundtrack to it. I just think it's brilliant. I think everybody should own a copy. Coffee. Next one up is a film that's actually, went from being like a schlocky sci-fi kind of film to something that's quite celebrated because it came out in Criterion in the past 12 months in America, and it's The Incredible Shrinking Man. It's about a guy who's out on a boat. He gets hit with some cosmic rays, and he gets back home, and over the course of time he just starts shrinking. Now it's kind of a bit of a conceit to show off from some decent special effects for the time, as he gets smaller and everything else around gets bigger. So how do you show a man in that state without CGI and all that kind of stuff? It's a pretty good advert for 1950s sci-fi kind of tropes. But at the very heart of it, at the bottom of him, as he gets smaller and he starts to question his existence and, how far he can exist and all of this kind of stuff, all the threats and dangers that come with being smaller and not having size anymore, it comes to question what's the very meaning of man in it. And I think The Incredible Shrinking Man's an awful lot more interesting film than it certainly appears on first look. So if you're thinking, God, it's just a 50s sci-fi film with sort of alright special effects, then I think there's a bit more to it. And if you think, God, I'm looking for something a bit deeper to get something a bit more out of, I think you'll find it in this film. Next up, well, it wouldn't be one of my recommendations without a recommendation from this director. Irikuzu Koreeda's Like Father, Like Son. Now, you could pick any Koreeda film as far as I'm concerned for one to showcase as being picked up in the Arrow Video sale. This used to be on Arrow Academy, and Like Father, Like Son gets to the crux of nature versus nurture as a debate. You have 2 couples that mix up their kids in the hospital, and one family takes home the other one, and one family is very well off. It's nearly as if they would like to breed the perfect child, and then you have the other family that's nowhere near as rich or as well off, but they have a very cohesive family unit where the father and the mother are very close together, very much in love and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of contrasts these 2 things, all while in the background, is anybody going to find out that these kids aren't who they say they are, for instance? Fascinating film, one that I dearly, dearly love. In fact, if you just want to pick up any of Koreeda's films, I think you're on the big, big winner. I utterly love this man's films. Another Arrow Academy release coming up, and this one is of the Western variety, and it's from a very underrated director, I think, in general. It's his final film. It's Joseph H. Lewis's Terror in a Texas Town. This one tells a story of a typical Western story in that there's a guy that's in charge or looking to be in charge of a whole area or town, and he wants to take control of the area and the resources within it. He ends up killing somebody, and it's only when his son comes along, played by Sterling Hayden, who comes along and he comes into town and he sees what's going on, that it becomes this kind of push back to say, you shouldn't be doing this. Is it a revenge tale? Does he come off with it? This guy's kind of nothing other than having a bit of stature. He's just coming in from the outside world and he wants to take back his town. It's classic tropey western style film, but I think it's incredibly enjoyable, and because Joseph H. Lewis is at the helm of it, I think it comes off marvellously, even if the ending's a bit sort of ridiculous. But yeah, that only makes it more fun. Back to Arrow Video, and an all-time classic that I think may confuse a lot of people because there's been a couple of films out of this name. We're talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This one's the 1978 version with Donald Sutherland. There is a BFI release of the much older version out as well. They're both great films, but I particularly love the 1978 version. It tells the story of New York basically getting taken over by what appears to be an alien race. How they're doing it, well, anybody's to come. It's got that thing. If you like The Thing, you'll like Invasion of the Body Snatchers because it has that bit where you're not sure who is and who isn't. It's creepy that way. And it has one of the all-time greatest endings of any film that there's ever been. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and again, one of those absolute must watch, must buy films. In fact, going through the list, when I think of the films that came out the year that I was born, this is the best film of 1978 in totality. And there's been, it's not a banner year for cinema, but I think this stands well clear of any other film that came out that year. Back to Arrow Academy, and we're back to a bit of noir, in this case, a noir recommendation. And there was a box set many years ago of 4 classic noir tales, and this is one of them. This is The Dark Mirror. This stars Olivia de Havilland as one of a twin pairing who are both involved in a murder, and they're both involved because one of them did it, and the guy that's trying to catch the killer isn't sure which one of the twins has the alibi or could have done it, so he can't be sure which one it was. And is that enough to be able to convict somebody? Is that enough to be able to say, lock them up? It's a twisty-turny noir film with a lot of fun. It has Olivia de Havilland in one of the main performances, so it's gonna have some sort of emotional heft to it, or at least some skill in the acting. I think The Dark Mirror is a lot of fun. Last 3 I have are all Arrow Video, and well, again, another one of my favourite films from a few years ago. This one is After Midnight. After Midnight is a film I've talked about a lot. If been around in the channel for a while, you'll know that I really dearly love this film. It's one of those modern horror films that Arrow has put out a lot of. The Ghost Waits, The Threshold, there are a lot of them over the past while. This and The Endless, I think, stand alone at the top as being a cut above everything else. After Midnight tells the story of a man who's moved out to the countryside with his girlfriend, wife, to build a life out there, except she's not sure. And she leaves him to investigate whether this is something that she's interested in or whether she just wants to go back to the city life. And it's when he is left on his own that you're not sure as the viewer that his mind isn't playing tricks on him. So it is, in sort of way, does his loneliness manifest itself as a monster that nobody else can see or hear, or is there actually a monster? There's a lot of fun play with this idea, but it is a story of a man that's left isolated in more ways than one. It's no trick that this is rated a bit like The Endless. It was produced by Moorhead and Benson. It even stars Justin Benson in it, in the sheriff's role. I think it's absolutely great, and it has some great jump scares and fun bits in it, and even a cracking musical interlude in the middle of it as well. I think After Midnight is another one of those can't miss kind of titles. I think there's an awful lot to it. Nearly there, and we're on to a Korean film. This is Park Chan-wook's JSA. Park Chan-wook is more famous probably for Old Boy, the Vengeance trilogy. The man is well established. Even come to later films that he's made, like The Handmaiden, another all-time favourite. JSA is his first film, and it tells the story of the North-South Korea border. There's been an incident at the border on the threshold between the people that are manned on both sides, and we are left to wonder what actually happened there. They're being investigated in the present, and everything else is told in flashbacks as you go back. It's a twisty-turny. It's very stylishly and coolly made, as I think you'd expect from a Park Chan-wook film. If you haven't seen any Park Chan-wook films, I think this is a pretty good one to start off with, although you will move on to Old Boy. Old Boy's out on Arrow Video. If you haven't seen Old Boy, Jesus Mary, go and watch Old Boy. Great film. But if you have seen Old Boy, I'm not sure what else to see from that person. JSA is a really interesting kind of taut thriller that makes complete sense come at the end. I really enjoyed it. And last one I'm going to talk about is from Isuzu Mazamura, and they've done quite a lot of his releases. Irikuzu, Blind Beast has come out. There's a couple more probably planned, but this is a double release of The Black Report and Black Test Car. Now, Black Test Car gets primary billing here. Both films are sort of quite similar, but it tells a story of competing car firms that are trying to release the latest sports car, trying to release the most innovative model, and it's about sort of industrial espionage of one people trying to steal secrets from the other, but really at the core of it, about the people who are involved, about the cutthroat nature of that world, the lengths that people will go to, both in terms of themselves sacrificing themselves personally and professionally in order to achieve that. I think Masamura's films are excellent. Red Angel, I'm not sure is in the sale either, but again, another one I really enjoyed. That's my last recommendation for the sale this year. Or is it? It's not actually, because I've ordered some myself, a couple that I've seen previously that have talked about my rentals and that kind of stuff from beforehand that haven't got here, so I haven't got physical copies for you, but they're 2 Hottie recommendations. First one is Dinner in America. Again, not one of those modern films that Arrow Video released. It's what I would call a movie for the forgotten generation. It touches Napoleon Dynamite in it. It tells the story of a young lady, played by amazingly by Emily Scraggs, who is kind of seen as like kind of a bit of a loser or otherwise, but it does this wonderful thing of she's seen as a loser by society, but in a lot of ways she's way cooler than everybody else. She's got way more figured out than the rest of the world will give her credit for, and she befriends this kind of, who for all intents and purposes what seems to be a thug or a crook, and well, they're a really interesting pair as they get together, as they kind of have this mutual respect for each other. I think Dinner in America is a stunning film. It's so much fun, and again has one of the greatest musical interludes you'll ever see in a film. And the last one I'm going to talk about is another can't miss film, and that is Over the Edge. Over the Edge is one of those teen angst films. You know, nobody respects the kids, nobody looks after the kid in a place that's actually filmed in Denver, Colorado, I think, but it's set kind of West Coasty in a place that seems to be overrun by thuggish teens, and the sheriff is trying to crack down on them in this place. What I will say about Over the Edge is I went into expecting to hate it. There's a very young Matt Dillon in it, for instance. I expected to hate it, and I thought it was utterly brilliant. It is a lot of fun in much the same style as something like Francis Ford Coppola's The Outsiders, or things of that ilk that were coming around that stage, Touch of the Lost Boys, etc. I think it's a great film. It's an even better release by Arrowus. The documentary film that's broken into multi parts is great in it as well, and it's another one that I heartily recommend to you. I hope you've great fun picking things up in the sale. It's an evergreen kind of thing. Arrow Video titles tend not to go out of stock or out of print, so it kind of comes back round on what's a good film and what's not. But that's my recommendations for the Camp Video Arrow sale, and I'll catch you next time on the channel. Take care, all the best, bye.